Ah, here we are. My classic cuckoo clock just said that it's 4 o'clock on my telephone. So while people are still dropping in, I'd like to welcome all of our attendees, all of our speakers, and all the people providing support in the background. My name is Robert Beerwolf, and I'd like to welcome you all on behalf of the KNVI, the Koninklijke Nederlandse Vereniging van Informatieprofessionals, or in English, the Royal Dutch Association of Information Professionals, as well as welcome to the members of KNVI, the Koninklijk Instituut van Ingenieurs, the Royal Netherlands Society of Engineers, and members of IEEE TEMS, the Technology and Engineering Management Society, one of the 39 technical societies of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, IEEE. Rest assured, IEEE covers more technological fields than just electrical engineering. And I need to explicitly mention to all participants, and as you have seen also in the email of confirmation, the event will be recorded. And so in case you would not like to be in the picture, turn off your camera as the alternative option. The recording will be post-processed, and then parts of the recordings will be put on the website of the KNVI. So if you want to re-look at it again, that opportunity will exist. In terms of our agenda for today, you have probably seen it. We have 3 speakers from 3 different countries in our Zoom today. Maija Brekke, EC Policy Officer, calling in from Brussels, Belgium, right? Professor David Romero, calling in from Mexico, at the other side, in the early morning parts. And Professor Johan Starre calling in from Sweden. So welcome to all the 3 speakers. The agenda will be as follows. We will kick off with Maija. She will give an introduction to her materials, followed by David Romero. In between, we can have 1 or 2 questions, and after David, Johan Starre will tell, and after which we will have more open panel discussions. In terms of asking questions, if you have questions, please post them already as soon as you have the question in the chat. Ruben Geven and Guido Rakemaas will catch up the questions popping up in the chat, collect them together, and from there we will choose the questions to put forward to our speakers. If you put a question into the chat, put in front for whom the question is intended. Just use the 2 initials. For Maija Brekke, simply use MB. For David Romero, simply use DR. And for Johan Starre, simply use JS for the question. So it is clear for whom the question is. Let me show that. Click. Here's an example. If I have a question for David Romero, I say DR, and then what did you mean with operate 4.0, David? Of course, this is just an example question, but then Guido and Ruben know for whom the questions are, and we can collect them together. So, having said that, our first speaker, Maija Brekke, as I said, located in Brussels, Belgium. She's here as the policy officer for the European Commission, working for the Directorate of General Research and Innovation. And she's also first author of the policy brief that was issued in January, entitled Industry 5.0 towards a sustainable, human-centric and resilient European industry. That paper was written together with Lars de Nul and Antonios Petrides. And I guess, Maija, I'm giving you the floor to set the stage on today's session and topic of Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0. Maija, please go ahead.
Okay, I will just share my slides with everyone. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for inviting me to this event. And I will give you an overview of basically what the European Commission and more specifically DG Research and Innovation is proposing with this concept of Industry 5.0. Where are we coming from is Industry 4.0. As you probably are well aware of this concept, it is mainly based on the digitalization, which is transforming European industry, accelerating production processes, and as well changing the role of the workers in industry. And for us, how we see it, Industry 4.0 is mainly focused to increase the efficiency and productivity. And in our view, there are some flaws which might not completely correspond to how we want to see European industry and more broadly European economy and society. And this trend is also present not only in our view, but there's a growing number of industrialists who consider that there's place for some reconsideration of how we build the relations between human workers and technology. So where we're coming from, these are the 6 priorities for the ongoing College of Commissioners. And first 3 of them are the most relevant for the industry. Namely the green and digital transition, which is affecting every layer of society and including the industry, and the economy that works for people, and this idea of human centricity and the societal relevance of industry. So what we did, we applied these, we tried to apply these priorities to the policy, industrial policy. And we came up with this concept of Industry 5.0. And what's important to stress, we are not talking of the 5th industrial revolution. We are not proposing a new revolution because from the technological point of view, there's not that much difference between 4.0 and 5.0. What is different though is the focus. Industry 5.0, these are like the 3 main ideas or 3 main pillars. So it's more human-centric, meaning that it promotes talents, diversity, empowers the worker. It is aimed to make the industry more resilient, more agile, more flexible, rethink the supply chains, and as well, it's puts the industry in the front of leading the action on sustainability and respecting the planetary boundaries. So what does it actually mean? What do we mean by that? So first, this is the working definition that we proposed in our concept paper, which, as Robert mentioned, was published early this year. So Industry 5.0 recognizes the power of industry to achieve societal goals beyond jobs and growth, to become a resilient provider of prosperity by making production respect the boundaries of our planet and placing the well-being of our worker at the center of production process. So why do we need Industry 5.0? For us, it's gonna come sooner or later, and there are benefits for everyone involved. There are benefits for the workers, namely improved safety, well-being, improved mental health aspects, and so on. the workers are more empowered and they're in charge of the changes and transitions that are taking place in the industry. And as well, they're accompanied in terms of the skills needs. So they are kept up to date in terms of their skills. And for the industry as well, it's contributing to the competitiveness of industry in the new markets, but also in the existing ones. It leads to reduction of the costs due to resource and energy efficiency. And finally, and I will come to this later, it helps industry to attract the best talents. So what does it mean, human-centric industry? So first of all, we shift the focus from technology-driven change to human-centric approach. This means we are looking to this transition that the industry is going through from the human point of view. It's all about the safe, quality jobs and the well-being, and as I said, physical and mental health aspects of the workers. Also, it's a shift towards the vision of workers as the investment and not the cost. And this is not just a slogan for us. I mean, by investing in the worker, in their skills, you actually increase the capabilities of the worker, meaning that they're more productive, they're more capable, which also brings economic benefits. So actually, every day that the company is not investing in the worker, they're losing out in terms of time and they're losing out in terms of money. So basically, how we see technologies in this picture, the technologies are enhancing the capabilities of the human workers, such as creativity, entrepreneurship, and other transversal skills. Namely, yeah, creativity, we can already see that there are some skills which are not only digital skills, but also those soft skills that are ranking quite high in terms of what the employers are expecting from the future workforce. And we already see that by 2025, which is just in 4 years, this is expected 75% of the workforce will be so-called millennials, people born between 85 and 95. And that their preferences, attitudes, and behavior, including in the labor market, are quite different from the previous generations. There's a growing number of research that proves that very often those younger people are choosing employers that are sharing their values. And that might be as a complementary motivation of the industry to do this shift and adapt more value oriented approach. And what does it mean by sustainable, more sustainable industry? So for us, it's all about resource efficiency, energy efficiency. So we would be doing better with less, and it's about circular economy and technology that supports that in order to improve the environmental outcome of European industry. And well, we also saw that it's not only a European effort, also UN are very much going towards this direction. For example, we can see that in the Sustainable Development Goals number 9 and 12. And certainly industry will need to be part of this game, and better to be as a front runner in this efforts. because we see that they are an important share of polluter. And at the same time, we can see that since 90s, they have been improving both in terms of energy efficiency and the carbon emissions, even perhaps better than the general society. So how do we actually make it happen? For us, it's not only industrial policy, it's clearly well beyond that, and reaching out to many policy areas, including environmental, technology, education, social, employment, regional, taxation policies. And only with the concrete actions in each of these policy areas, we can attain meaningful results. So what we are doing as a Research and Innovation Directorate, we are reaching out to our colleagues in other directorates to look what they are already doing. And actually, we are surprised sometimes to see that they are going pretty much the same direction, even if they're not calling it Industry 5.0, even if they're not doing it for the sake of industry. There are many policy actions where our efforts could be mainstreamed. Yeah, so here are just a little list of some actions that we have been looking into, and some of them already have done let's say, the first steps. For example, the fellowships between factories and testing infrastructures. We have been in touch with the European Institute of Technology and looked on the ways how to include the Industry 5.0 related aspects in the curricula that they're currently launching. Also, we're looking into a possibility to establish a coalition of the willing of industrial partners for Industry 5.0. We are considering to perhaps elaborate a price, and currently we're looking into several paths to provide it for the either projects or industries or even regions. So these are just a couple of ideas in their early stages. That's about it. In case you have any immediate questions, I'm happy to take them.
Perfect. Thank you, Maija, for your insightful presentation. Might I take the honors to ask you one immediate question? With the human centricity involved, what's your expectation with respect to job satisfaction and or it shifting because the old factory work completely will change?
So as I mentioned, for us, the perfect outcome would not be only to keep the number of the jobs, but to provide a quality jobs. We don't want to have a factory where, let's say, the central force of the workers are robots and the humans are only maintaining them. So for us, that would not be an optimal outcome. That's why we really encourage to have this human-centric approach where we think about diversity, we think of workers' rights, privacy, and so on, the well-being, and so on.
All right. Thank you. We have a question here that says, education focus on STEM. That's all right, but what is really needed to apply STEM towards the Sustainable Development Goals? Do you have a view on that?
Well, actually, we had this discussion with the EIT, and that's also always challenging, is how to target the engineers, the people that are coming from the STEM backgrounds, and how to make them, let's say, sensible to questions that are going beyond the technology. And that's why actually EIT is giving a lot of focus to these transversal skills, to leadership, entrepreneurship, collaboration among the people, teamwork. I mean, all these things are creativity. So it's clearly coming out of different, let's say, education and reskilling related approaches.
Right. So EIT is really operationalizing the concept towards the marketplace, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, yes. One thing is the principles and values and all the nice good things, and then the question is how do we actually apply it on the shop floor.
Okay. Then I have a question I see from Frans van Pasen, which asks, are all EU member states already supporting the 5.0 initiative? So what is the status of the policy brief? Has it been adopted? Do we EU-wide collaborate on that matter?
Well, actually, like as I mentioned, that the concept is still quite new. The concept paper came up out just a couple of months ago. Yeah. So how the Commission is working, they're not working directly with the member states. So we would not share it around and ask their position on our concept paper. Nevertheless, of course, as I mentioned, we are currently in an active phase of reaching out to different stakeholders. So we've heard several kind of reactions. And let's say there are some member states which are more prone to, let's say, stick with the old concept of 4.0. And then we have experienced some kind of resistance towards the use of this new concept, new label. Because of course they are the ones that are protecting the 4.0 flag. But at the same time, we had a very nice chat with the Irish people, like the Digital Innovation Hub, and actually we were surprised again to see that they're going the same direction as we do. And they are promoting the same kind of approach, and there are clearly some member states that are, let's say, much closer to our vision than the others.
Right. All right. Thanks very much. Which brings us to our. Thank you, Maija, and we'll talk later on in the panel again, right? Which brings us to our second presenter of today, which is Professor David Romero, who is with the Advanced Manufacturing Research Group at the Center for Innovation in Design Technology of the School of Engineering and Sciences from the University of Tecnológico de Monterrey, which is located in Mexico. David actually, together with Johan Starre, wrote a paper in the past, which was named Towards an Operator 4.0 Typology, a human-centric perspective on the fourth industrial revolution technologies, which was actually used by Maija in her policy paper. And David will take us along to the operator of the future, about human augmentation and collaboration. And so we were looking at what the future workforce, as David refers to it as human technology symbiosis, will bring us. David, the floor is yours. You're still muted. There you go.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the invitation. I would start by saying that, we should pay more sometimes attention behind the principles that are, behind the concepts that we use, right? Rather than get too in love with these concepts, even though concepts are good to market ideas and principles. So what I would like to share with you is some of the reflections that Johan, I, and a group of colleagues from different countries around the world, we have made over the last years as we saw the fourth industrial revolution, starting to emerge and then to start positioning and grow in the different industries and also in societies. And one of the first things that I would like to reflect was, and this is one of the pillars of the Industry 5.0 vision, it's to talk about the sustainability, and particularly the social sustainability of manufacturing, and what is the future of work. And we have to say that we started, with one apocalyptic vision that we didn't like it too much, and we look into a lot of the news as we started to see unfold the fourth industrial revolution, and we saw that this idea of that a robot will take your job, right? So and we started to reflect that if this was really true, or what was really the idea behind this fear. And as researchers, we embarked on the venture to try to discover, what was the argumentation behind all this. And the first thing, of course, that we did was like, well, as always, you can see things in a negative way, in an apocalyptic way, or you can see things in a positive way. And we remind ourselves as scientists, as engineers, that we have always used technology to advance humankind. And by the chance, we discovered that actually this is the slogan of IEEE, Advancing Technology for Humanity. So we said, is it really technology good or bad? Which lead us to start reading a little bit about, social sciences and engineering sciences and different disciplines. And we find one historian about technology, Melvin Kranzberg. Not sure if everyone is familiar with it. He wrote these 6 laws of technology, and one of these laws tells us that technology is neither good or bad, nor it's neutral. Humans invent and use technology and then write history about and on that technology. So the thing is how we use technology. And this was also mentioned by Maija, right? I mean, it's like an economy that works for people, technology that is human-centric. So it's really up to us how we want to use technology and how we use that technology to improve our quality of work and our quality of living. And if we really look, into different reports around the world, we see more and more the need to reflect on the impact of what we do, not only, in high levels when we talk about industries or companies or the society, but whatever we do needs to be focused on the individuals. Sooner or later, we arrive to this key level of the society, which is the individuals. And whatever we need to do, it needs to impact the citizens, it needs to impact the workers. Which brings us, even though that we're living this big, era of robotics or automation and digitalization, we see that still for many years to come, factories are going to be socio-technical systems, and therefore we need to continue studying how we design the future of the workplaces and the future of work from a socio-technical perspective, which means that we need to design work in a way that, of course, it creates satisfaction for the employee. It creates engagement, And of course, it creates, professional development, personal development, and how we combine all these cases, right, to create a workplace, to create a work environment, to create work that allows to harmonize all these needs. Of course, companies need to, let's say, to create value, so this value can be shared with the workforce, and the value that has been created through the workforce, through product services, could impact the society. So this is the big social view. Then of course the engineering point of view is like how then we can use technology to improve the way we interact with technology, the way we work. So this means talking about new ways of human-machine interactions, new ways of using automation, new ways of designing our work. And coming back to the initial fear that we saw at the beginning, when it came to the idea of a robot will take your job, yes or no, what we discovered looking into different disciplines, that at the end what we were seeing is this kind of a love and hate relationship that nowadays we have with automation. And the main reason is that because sometimes we misunderstand what are the different kinds of automation that exist and what are the different possibilities that offer to us. Sadly, we saw in many news a perspective which was more binary thinking, looking into mainly how man versus technology, man versus machine, they were competing, rather than starting to explore an exponential thinking where we can reflect about what are the new possibilities that can be offered by collaborating or augmenting humans with technology. Furthermore, I think many of us, we are quite familiar with physical automation, the muscle power. Industrial robotics have been with us for many decades. Perhaps what is more or less new nowadays is the idea of cognitive automation, brain power, the use of artificial intelligence. And this, creates, once again, if we see it from a positive point of view, different possibilities to allocate physical and cognitive work, and or more particularly specific tasks within the job that we conduct to technology, and some of them to us. And I think if we really start looking into the possibilities, right? I mean, if we look into physical tasks, cognitive tasks, routinary, non-routinary tasks, and we apply these concepts of Industry 5.0 being human-centric, and later on we're going to talk about the new types of work that emerge. But imagine that we can now offer the operators the possibility of relying for those boring, repetitive tasks, right, that they don't want to do, to give the automation the responsibility to do these tasks that they don't like, for those types that they like, how to keep them or how to make them more interesting by making them collaboratively or in a augmented way. So once again, my point here is like technology, rather than trying to compete against the workforce, if we look into it, it really creates new possibilities for working and new possibilities of work division and task allocation between what we would really like to do and what is satisfying for us to do, and what kind of things we can give and allocate to the new technologies. So, routinary physical tasks, we have traditional automation, traditional industrial robotics, physical non-routinary, we have now the technology of collaborative robotics, cognitive routinary, for many years, this is a typical automation. Cognitive non-routinary, we have the new manifestations of artificial intelligence, such as intelligent personal assistants. And the whole point of this is that we're living big ironies of automation. And once again, we are perhaps too obsessed in the technology rather than the capabilities, the possibilities that offers this technology. And we have seen, for example, the case of Tesla, when they hire a lot of robots and they try to fully automate the factory. Then they discovered that they needed flexibility, and the most flexible production resource that we have are humans. So rather than designing a production line that was fully automated, they really reflected about how to find the proper balance between automation, semi-automation, and manual tasks supported by collaborative technologies, by automation, full automation technologies, and by the own human capabilities that we can offer. And in this sense, one of the definitions that I really like, this is the American definition for their Industry 4.0 paradigm, is that true smart manufacturing marriage information technology and human ingenuity. And once again, it's not, technology is neither good or bad. Technology is also neither magical, right? It's really how we use our human creativity, ingenuity, our capacity for innovation to transform the nature of our work, to make it more rewarding, to make it more productive, to make it more efficient. And I would say also at this point, and later on, Johan will go deeper into this when he talks about skills. Technology is as good as the skills, the knowledge that we have to apply it in a differentiated way to create, once again, higher quality work standards, higher life standards for the workforce, for industry, for society. So human augmentation, human collaboration with technology, it's something that has been emerging in the research agendas over the last years. We see nowadays, now with COVID, we saw how collaborative technologies, how wearable technologies, smart wearable technologies were contributing to maintain the continuity of operations in factories, in the shop floor, so making even against difficult environments more productive the workforce. And it was also the technology being used to contribute to the occupational health and safety of the operators. And the more we dig into all these, we will see that automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, it's not really taking over our jobs, but it's really changing the nature of our work and creating new possibilities. I was mentioning about what we really are good at, what machines are really good at, what machines, artificial intelligence, robots should be doing, what humans should be doing, and how this technology should be working individually under the supervision of humans, but what other things should be doing in collaboration with the humans, or in which cases technology should be augmenting the work of the humans. So it's really also see technologies such as a collaborative robot, an intelligent personal assistant, as new partners in the shop floor, in our work, right? And seeing that sometimes it's better for humans to lead and receive the support of technologies. Sometimes it's better for the technology to lead and receive the support of the humans. And this will, make us, and this is very important, to force us to reflect that jobs are not going away, occupations are not going away, but if we really study what is happening with the future of work, what we're going to see is that tasks are changing. The tasks that we perform as humans are changing, And we need to go deeper into this because it's still, it's not clear, how truly it's going to, these technologies are going to impact the future of work. We have seen several studies, and there are huge margins of difference, like OECD says that 9% of job displacements because of Industry 4.0 technologies. International Labor Organization says 60% of job displacement. The reality, we see these big margins, is like we're not sure, and what it's the only way to predict a better future for the workforce is by focusing on that's the best way of doing it. So the future of production, we look into many scorecards about what makes important, what makes a very important driver of the readiness for the future of production. It's really the human capital. I was already mentioning. Technologies are as good as their users. We need to train the workforce to take advantage of that technologies, to use that technologies to design a better future of the workplace, of work. And in order to bring all these together, our reflection was trying to brand it, right? I mean, as the European Commission is doing it under the concept of Industry 5.0, our reflections come together on the umbrella of the concept of the Pareto 4.0. I guess many of you are familiar with this graphic on Industry 4.0 revolution. Perhaps, not so familiar with the upcoming one. Right here we see, how we use different sources of power, right, from steam up to the use nowadays of technology to great breakthroughs in productivity in the production lines. And what we did in our reflection was to look how humans were creating their own, new sources of productivity and efficiency by creating new tools to improve their work. So from the Pareto 1.0, where we were working mainly manual and dexterous work, and we were using mechanical tools and hand tools, manually operated machine tools, to of the Pareto 4.0 with assisted work that we built computer-aided systems to support us, for example, in cognitive tasks, and machine tools and industrial robots to help us to to perform certain physical tasks, to the Pareto 3.0 with cooperative work, nowadays with new partners at the shop floor, such as collaborative robots and intelligent personal assistants, bringing Alexa, Siri to the shop floor, to the idea of the Pareto 4.0 of work aided by human cyber-physical systems. Such can be the case of the use of smart AR glasses or exoskeletons that improve our cognitive capabilities or our physical capabilities. So our definition of the Pareto 4.0 is a smart and skilled operator who performs not only cooperative work with, let's say, technology, but also work aided by this technology by means of different human cyber-physical systems, new types of human-machine interaction technologies, and adaptive automation. And our final aim is to create human automation symbiosis work systems, right? It's like the vision, it's how we can capitalize not only on smart machines, technologies, strengths, and capabilities, but also use these technologies to empower some operators with new skills and gadget gizmos to fully capitalize on the opportunities being created by these such called Industry 4.0 technologies. And how, by combining both capabilities of smart machines and smart operators, we can achieve levels of efficiency and productivity that neither nor of them can achieve on their own. So I think, once again, this is the exponential thinking that we are trying to promote. And to do so, to make it easier for people to look into this, we proposed this typology, where we explore, for example, how an operator plus an exoskeleton can create, strength, its physical capabilities, its endurances. So we don't need to make trade-off perhaps between the young worker that has the schema to do a lot of work, right? But doesn't have the experience of a more senior operator, but that senior operator may don't have the schema to conduct certain type of operations. So technology in this case removed the compromise of losing the experience of the senior operator because of the lack of endurance, because we can compensate that endurance by the use of an augmented technology for physical capabilities, such the use of a smart skeleton, right? Or we can have the operators plus the augmented reality, the augmented operator. And for example, as we move to the idea of more mass customized, personalized products to respond to the market demands, we are going to have more variability in the production, and it's hard to pay attention to use, all our cognitive power to pay attention to little details to maintain quality. We can use augmented reality, smart AR glasses to build digital assistant systems to support the operator, right? To pay attention to details. So we don't forget steps, we don't forget certain checks that we need to make. And, there's so many possibilities, that we can explore. We live it right nowadays with the COVID, right? How wearable trackers contributed to create more healthy environments, more safe environments for the workforce. So the operator 4.0 plus the wearable trackers, the healthy operator, contributing once again to the physical protection of the operator, to the health, mental health protection of the operator. So there are many possibilities, right? Using exoskeletons, augmented reality, virtual reality, wearable trackers, intelligent personal assistants, collaborative robots, connections. I think the future, it's not the Internet of Things, but the Internet of Things, Services, and People. And all these technologies, what are really creating, it's new ways of working. New ways of working, which could be assisted work, that we will already, briefly mention it. So in this case, technology is assisting us, right? And the operators still performing key tasks and making decisions, but for example, a wearable device, a collaborative robot, and artificial intelligence could take that boring part of the job, which is the repetitive and standardized tasks. Or we have the collaborative work, where the operators work side by side with collaborative robots or artificial intelligence, each performing tasks that are best at and supporting each other. Augmented work, right, where the operators use technologies to extend their physical and cognitive capabilities. And if we see all these things, right, we are not fighting against technology, we're not competing against technology, but we're using, automation, digitalization, robotics to create, a more satisfying and more engaging work environment, where in our jobs, we are doing the tasks that we like the most, that we're better at, right? That will create, of course, better engagement and better productivity for our employer. Also, we can use the technology for addressing some challenges, like the senior operators, the aging challenging, the operator with the disability, with inclusive challenges, the apprentice operator with the learning curve challenge, for example, using augmented reality, that use of digital assistant systems to, to cut short the learning curve, to bring faster the apprentice into the production line to start becoming more productive. Or I have seen some amazing examples of social responsible companies where most of their employees are people with a certain disability, but they use pick-by-light systems and other kind of pick-by-light, put-to-light, assembly-to-light systems to allow people with certain disabilities to be able to still be productive for society. And the challenge I think we have for the next years is to develop better tools to design the future of work, right? How we can better understand how tasks are evolving. We're working together with Johan in some of these tasks, right? Understanding, imagine that what we want to do, if we want to truly be human-centric, it's not only given the technologies with their potential, functionalities and features to the workers, but we need to give them frameworks, models to allow the workforce to design what they want to do, what they expect about their new job profiles, right? And how they, if you imagine, we're going to bring a collaborative robot to the shop floor, what would be the difference, right? So I used to do certain physical tasks. Now, certain part of those tasks that I used to do now are being done by the robot, but now I'm going to have new cognitive tasks as part of my job profile, because I'm going to be taking care of my new partner, right, which is my collaborative robot, and I can give a name to my new partner, right? So Johnny, collaborative robot, or Jumi, for example, as ABB calls it's a collaborative robot. And this will, once again, what is happening there is that the robot is not taking my job, but it's really transforming the nature of my job, the task of my job, allowing me to learn new things, because now I'm going to take care and provide maintenance to my new production partner in my my working area. So this is one of the things that are really engaging for me. So just to start wrapping up, giving now the mic to Johan, we see Industry 4.0, right? And yes, Industry 4.0, we have to recognize it started with a very technocentric perspective. Over the years, we have changed it a little bit, the dialogue, and try to remember ourselves that Industry 4.0 needs to be human-centric. Japanese, and we have to say, they make a first effort to create their own Industry 4.0 paradigm, which they decided to call it Society 5.0, trying to stress, right, that whatever we do, we need to use tools and technologies to develop the Industry 4.0 in a way that can benefit the humankind. And their definition of the Society 5.0 was predominant focus on creating happier, satisfied, fulfilled, and consequently more productive societies. We have seen this discussion for many years, how the workforce feels disengaged from their jobs, right? And how this is affecting productivity. But imagine that now with all these new gadgets, collaborative technologies, and smart wearables, how we can use that to make, once again, the shop floor an exciting place to be, right? Get people more engaged in science, mathematics, engineering, disciplines, right? I mean, I tell my students the most fun place to be in the upcoming years is the shop floor, is the factory. You have the chance to become, the Iron Man of the shop floor, used as an armor, which is going to make you, stronger. You're going to have your intelligent personal assistant helping you. So amazing things are happening. And we're seeing, I have the chance to be a couple of years in Japan. This is actually the roster of a production line in Japan. So the boss, it's an intelligent personal assistant, it's an avatar. The production lines includes other partners such as collaborative robots. And I'm really happy because half of my heart is European because of the amount of work that I do in collaboration with Europe. I'm really happy to see that with this new Industry 5.0 policy paper and landmark that is being put into the discussion, we are focusing on human-centric development of technologies that needs to contribute to a more productive, resilient, engaging workforce that will mainly, from this perspective, we're discussing to promote a more socially sustainable workforce. And this social sustainability bottom line needs to be more and more worked because it's the less one explored. So to conclude, we're humans are makers of all sorts. We always, as we say at the beginning, we have always developed tools, technologies to make our life easier, better, more productive. And this is what we need to do, right? Explore these new human technology symbiosis possibilities to create leaps in human prosperity. And perhaps for some of you, because also it was being mentioned in our previous discussion, right? If we invest in people, right, as a Khan would say in Star Trek, if we improve a mechanical device and you may double the productivity, but if you improve a man, right, you will gain a townsfolk. So technology also, once again, is as good as their users, and I guess this will connect very good with the upcoming discussion of Johan, which is going to talk about the importance of upskilling, reskilling, expert skilling the workforce, so we can really materialize all these opportunities offered by the new such called Industry 4.0 technologies.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. And before we step over to Johan, thanks very much. You took a little bit more time than accounted for, no problem.
Okay, but, so sorry.
We'll save some of the questions for later, but some already relate also to what Johan will mention, because some people ask, people need to be trained, of course, to use the new technology, and so does the operator 4.0 or Industry 5.0 already exist? That's a big challenge that Johan will talk about. And the other question that immediately pops up, obviously almost, is that what are the plans for access labor or migrant workers in a more automated manufacturing scenario? But I guess that leads to another question about what's the difference between manufacturing, production, and how does it entail with the talents that are needed for the different definitions. We need to be more clear about our wordings, right? Just like you mentioned, the difference between a job, an occupation, and a task. What's your view on that, David?
Well, we need to look more into task level analysis of things to really have. That's so far what we have found. The more granularity you put into the jobs, the better you understand the impact of the technologies. And in most of cases, you will see that are transforming jobs for the benefit of the worker. But also this, the thing also is the way how we are creating this new task division, this new task analysis. And once again, human centricity also means engaging and allowing the workforce to be, part of the adoption of the technology adoption processes that we're going to be transforming the type of work that the type of work they do, their job profiles, in order to lower the barriers of resistance of adopting new technology and remove the fear. The more we educate our workforce, the less resilience we will see against automation, robotics, digitalization, because they are the ones that are going to be, pulling that technology to transform their job profiles, their work for better.
All right. Thanks very much. So we'll be stepping over to our third speaker, Professor Johan.Panel, calling in from Sweden. Johan has over 2 decades of experience as a research and innovation leader at Chalmers University in the field of human-centered, automation-supported, and resilient work for future employees and occupations. And here we go and see, and Johan will take us along how we leverage the digitalization and the upskilling to create that future human-centered jobs or resilient work, so to speak. And what are the impacts of artificial intelligence and collaborative innovation? Johan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Robert. It's an honor to be here. And of course, the risks of handing over the word to the professor, but you can bear with it, right? So I am from Chalmers University Technology on the west coast of Sweden. We are an innovation university working a lot with automotive industry. I've been also involved in the program that Maija was briefly mentioning, EIT manufacturing, to build that, and in a national program on innovation and education. So that I will cover that in a way. So this part will be a little bit about developing the workforce, primarily about skills. And the first question that David almost asked or almost answered was, do we really need a workforce? And this was quite highly debated a couple of years ago. There was some Oxford researchers that said, well, half of the jobs will go away. But as you heard by David, this is not really the thing. The tasks will change. But this was actually something that really puzzled people. So there's been a huge amount of literature aiming towards the work-free world. But I guess we can dream about that now that we're all sitting at home in our Zoom windows and still working more than we ever did. And also there is a risk about discussing the disappearance of jobs. A couple of years ago, there was a strong emphasis in the US that all the truck drivers would go a very difficult time ahead because all the trucks would be automated and autonomous. Turns out that was not the case, but the truck drivers had already listened to this and found other jobs. So now there's a shortage of more than 60,000 truck drivers in the US, and the remaining truck drivers are having quite a large salary raise because of this, of course. But the dangers of projecting things, future is coming slower than we think sometimes. Also, what kind of jobs can we look forward to? Is this really the kind of jobs that we want to have, or really the kind of work and workforces that we really want to know? The chimneys of the work of the factories is really some reminiscent from the 1800s, where we still had the steam engines, and we continued to organize our factories around the steam engines until the 1970s, something like that, even though there were none. And the jobs that came with that, if you look at the kind of jobs that you have, I'm sure you have all seen this Charlie Chaplin movie with Modern Times. If you haven't, you should see that at least the first 10 minutes, because it's a map of things where everything can go wrong when you try to design work for a horse in a workspace. But basically, most of the tasks at that time were physical, and only a few people had cognitive tasks. In the third industrial revolution, there was again a surge. I mean, in the 1960, there was actually John F. Kennedy has actually had a hearing about will the jobs be taken away by automation in the early 60s. And that is something that they were talking about. And there was a saying that, well, how many people do you need? How many individuals do you need to run a factory? Well, you need two. One is a dog, and the other one is a human. And the dog is there. The human is there to feed the dog, and the dog is there to make sure that the human doesn't touch anything, so it will break. And this was the lights out factories of Japan and other places were something real at that time. But not even now. If you look at the number of AI for the International Federation of Robotics, every year they submit statistics about how many robots there are. And if you and now this year it increased by 20%, and that's a lot. Seems a lot, but it means that it went up. The average world is 74 robots per 10,000 employees. So it's not really that much. If you look at the most frequent robots in Korea, you have 630 robots per 10,000 employees. That's 60 robots per 1,000 employees. So that's really not an alarming sign at this point, from my point of view. So instead, I think that, and this is a collaboration we had with SKF in Sweden, where we looked at the cognitive work of the operators. This is more like it. How do you support the operators in a good way to enable their efficient and excellent jobs? Another thing is that, well, if we are sure that there will be work, will there be workers? If you look at the populations in Europe and in China even, you might think, well, India is a little bit different, but you see that there is a big bulge here of people, and those of you who are, those of us, I should say, are 40 plus, are part of that big bulk. And I think that we should be very careful to see what is really left in a couple of years. If you look at Holland or Netherlands, in a few years, you see that, well, you have an awful, this is from 2018. So this is the red square there is the workforce. And you see that there is not really so many people coming from below. And if you look at the German and the Italian figures, there's quite a disaster. So we really cannot rely on the young people to fill the shoes that we might have left in the factories, at least, but also in the healthcare sector and in the finance sector, and because all these sectors need to share the young people coming up. There are not so many. In Stockholm and Göteborg, which are the big cities in Sweden, there's only half as many 15 to 19-year-olds as there are 35 to 40-year-olds. So there is a huge gap that we need to fill. So we cannot rely on that. What can we need? What can we do? Well, we need to develop the skills of the people that are 40 plus. And you might remember that those of us who are 40 plus, we did not have a PC when we went to school. We did not have a mobile phone. The phones were actually connected to the wall at that time with a long cord that you had to pull into the bathroom if you wanted to be alone when you were calling someone. So the skills presented by the World Economic Forum from a large survey they did with all the companies is the need for technology use, monitoring, control, critical thinking and analysis, active learning and learning strategies. And you can see there's a whole list of quite complex tasks, quite complex skills. So you don't really take a course in complex problem solving and then you're done with it. You need to work a long time to get to have these skills. And you see that there are some emerging jobs that you might not expect. with the data analysts and scientists, of course, power production plant operators, assembly and factory workers still there. In fact, in assembly plants, 95% of the work is still manual. Although you might find a lot of robots, it's still a lot of manual work. And if you look what kind of skills that the AI and automation can take over, you see that, well, it's not really the higher cognitive or the social and the emotional ones that are possible for the technology to take over. It's just the physical ones and the manual ones. And if there's anything that might be a difference from a gender perspective regarding muscle force, that is gone by now. So there should be no reason for a gender difference in industry today. So the World Economic Forum has done quite a lot of work on this, and they have surveyed 300 companies a couple of years ago with about 15 million employees. And they came to the conclusion that lifelong learning is not just lifelong learning, it's actually reskilling needs from 1 month to more than 1 year. And if you use these percentages and add them up and see how much reskilling they actually needed, and you just project that for the manufacturing workforce in Europe, you realize that, well, of these 30 million people who are employed in the manufacturing in Europe, if 15 million employees need reskilling of some sort, that will total a need of 100 million person months of training and education for Europe in the next coming 5 years. And just the standstill of production of 100 million person month of training is something that needs to be taken into consideration when you calculate GDP and expected development after the COVID leaves us. So there is actually an even more recent study, and it's for the manufacturing area, which I usually work with. That's even more bad news, because the new figures are pointing to an even higher percentage of need for upskilling. So now we can determine that, well, there will still be jobs for humans. Most of the jobs will be needing elderly people to handle that, and most of those people do not have the skills that they need at this point. So what can we do? Well, the World Economic Forum has actually set up a global, for the manufacturing side, a global website where you can access some of the tools needed to upskill. In China, in India, there is an effort of upskilling 150 million people. It's called Skill India. And in Europe, we have set up what Maija was talking about before, the EIT Manufacturing Education Program, which is partly innovation, partly business creation, but also education. And in this program, which will be available for everyone in Europe and all industries in Europe, we are focusing on bridging the skill gaps in manufacturing by providing a lot of skill modules or training modules. So we call them nuggets, and they are actually oriented, like Maija was saying, around some important areas. One of them being human-machine co-working and social sustainable manufacturing. Having that as a target is very important for us to create the societal needs that Maija was talking about in Industry 5.0. So it works like this. You have a lot of nuggets that you combine into learning paths or courses, and then you are able to access these primarily online, like Coursera or any other tool or any other modularized set. And you also work with teaching factories where you provide learning environments at universities and RTOs where you can simulate real manufacturing, but also on-site in factories where you can do hands-on training, like in an assembly factory that provides these contexts in these environments. So it's like, presently there are about 250 nuggets available, which you can combine. And these are, for example, related to Arduino, 3D printing. I just took some example here, cutting, manufacturing. And you have several learning factories available across Europe in different networks that you can also access. So speeding up a little bit, I am really happy to be able to participate in this discussion. I was really impressed by Maija's presentation and her colleagues' work on Industry 5.0. I think it's exactly the right thing to build on the Industry 4.0, to add value and to add knowledge on that. And I think that the needs are quite astonishing. I think that people have underestimated the needs for taking care of the workforce in terms of upskilling, reskilling. So thank you very much. And let's put the word back to you, Robert.
Thank you, Johan. Thank you very much. I thank all three speakers. We have collected a number of the questions that have come forth and put them a little bit into a sequence. So let me first open with the following question. There was a mention of responsible innovation in the policy document, Maija. And as IEEE, for example, we have a guideline that's called ethically aligned design, always referred to it mostly as ethics by design. It's a little bit walking onto the path of security by design, which we have learned from the past decade, where we understood if we make any product, by default, we must embrace security, because otherwise we get the big hacks and troubles that we live nowadays in. So with 5.0 and with the cyber physical system, the human cyber physical systems, how does ethics line up, and should it not become a mandatory part for whoever creates whatever piece of the puzzle? That's a question for you, Maija, and then the others may fill in.
Yes, surely, and this is also one important element of European approach. I would mention the artificial intelligence. This is, well, clearly one of the most powerful technologies. And this is precisely the European way to approach it, to make it safe, ethical by design, trustworthy, and in respect of principles like human dignity, privacy, and etc. So clearly, yes, that has to be there from the design space.
Is that something, Johan, you would imagine has to be part of the education too, or has it to be part of the whatever part of society?
But it has to be part of the education, but also of the design of the society and the industry. I assume it has to be part of policy, and it has to be part of policy's influence on the educational system.
Right. There was a question from the audience also, not necessarily looking at 4.0 and 5.0, but looking at today's platforms. Like there is Uber, like there's Deliveroo over here, and the whole phenomenon of flex workers that are not necessarily flex workers or fixed personnel. Does that have any relation or impact to the upcoming 4.0, 5.0 scene that you have been addressing? So what the role of labor contracts are going to be?
Like I can mention on this that when we started our work on Industry 5.0, we had this question, should we also address the platform workers?
Mm-hmm.
And our decision was to leave it out of the scope for the reason that the problematics that are concerning them are quite different from the typical manufacturing construction workers that we are mainly addressing in our paper. Like things like 0-hour contracts, social protection benefits, going into the algorithm-based, the organization of the work, and how we ensure that the actual worker is actually doing the work, and how good the systems are recognizing their face and all this. So we left it out of our approach. Meanwhile, I know that in DG Employment currently are elaborating a huge legislative package on platform workers in Europe, exactly addressing these questions. So that's why we left out of our scope, but we know that there's a lot of work at the European level addressing the rights of the platform workers.
Okay, thank you. A question from Johan. Johan, you showed the graph of the population change over time, so to speak, and in particular one you showed the one from the Netherlands, where we are becoming more gray, so to speak, right? Given that we are aware of that change in our distribution, does that mean that we may significantly gain by adopting the 4.0, 5.0 concepts? We used to be have to have a lot of manufacturing, but nowadays are much more of a service economy. But would that change in distribution lead to more necessity, or are there other countries that are even more gray for whom this becomes an even bigger burning house, so to speak, and burning house obviously leads to a faster adoption or faster change? What's your view on that?
I mean, you have the ultimate example is Japan, which you have a not even gray but even white-haired population, and I think that they have fully adopted the robotics in every sense, and I think that they have a notion society 5.0,
Mm-hmm.
which is very, very, very focused on supporting the elderly population and making them able to work in many ways. And I think that is something that Industry 4.0 and 5.0 might be able to do, to provide the support and provide the knowledge development that allows us to compete with, I don't know, 30-year-old or 25-year-old Chinese or African workers, because that's how we can become competitive, because that's the competition on the global market. So that's where we have to be. So we have to be much better, and technology can be bought by anyone. It can be bought by African or Chinese companies. So we need to be better, and we need to be more skilled, and we need to be supported by whatever technology we can get our hands on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. A question for Maija, but I guess just as much for David and Johan. A question is, if the EU indeed wants to stay competitive compared to the other power blocks, so to speak, with this adoption of 4.0, 5.0, what does that mean for our competitiveness as EU?
I mean, we are not naive that all of these good ideals and good intentions cost money. So of course, like there will be, some financial contributions needed to achieve it. At the same time, what is alternative? if we don't act, if we don't think of social implications of digitizing our factories, if we don't think of environmental outcomes, then what are the environmental costs? What are, like, I mean, there's always a cost and there's always a benefit. So it's not, I mean, if we only think in terms of how many dollars or euros we're gaining out of this, it might not lead us very far.
So we have to look at more factors than just the commercial success, so to speak.
For sure, and this is also the approach that the European Commission is doing. We're extending the notion of prosperity. For us, prosperity is not only how much money you have, but also how good is the environment in which you're living, how politically, socially stable is the society, and all these things are equally important.
I think that the pandemic is a good example also. There has been money pouring out of governments across the world. And you might think that this is a lot of money, but it isn't in comparison. And we need to do the same thing probably in a couple of years with the climate. But on the way there, the enabler to do this is digitalization. And digitalization is not something that you can just, it does not come with the milk in the morning. It needs to be worked at and learned and developed. And Holland, I think, has a very fine industry, actually. I think that you have more manufacturing than you think, because you have the integrated circuits, silicon, and you have a lot of other industries that you can be very proud of, I think.
Two questions for David, actually. One, would you mind sharing the difference in notion between knowledge around manufacturing and intellectual property, so to speak, and what that differs from production? You're still muted, David.
Yeah. So one of the things that we reflect once again on all this is the importance of, we have seen it now, right? The importance of having manufacturing capabilities. And manufacturing capabilities are put together by having the right technology and the right workforce with the right skills to use that technology. Is that what really creates the manufacturing capability of a company? And we need to not, forget about developing these capabilities, even though what we're going to see for sure in terms of competitiveness, how countries will be, specializing. And this also has been something that Europe has, going over the years, trying to know over the time which industries are still, is still at the right place in the right state member, and perhaps these industries need perhaps sometimes to move to another state member, but still keep the manufacturing in Europe, because another state member can offer a better landscape for that type of industry to grow, and some other states will create theirs. Like normally when we think about how industry develops, particularly manufacturing industry develops, it's always moving around, right? Always trying to look for the best places to grow, and sometimes in terms of industrial policy, each country will need to think when it's time to let an industry go, when it's time to reinvent an industry, when it's time to attract a new industry that was not previously considered in that state, in that country. So what is sure is that industry is always evolving. Industry policy, social policy It's always transforming the arenas of competition in a global economy that we're working on. And what I think through industrial policy, to social policy, to educational policy, to all these items that were mentioned by Maija, that were considered as part of the beyond the typical industrial policies, need to be addressed to maintain the manufacturing competitiveness of the different member states. Right. And also what I see is that we're competing more and more based on regions rather than based on countries.
Right, right. Thank you, David. And by the way, you mentioned, or you mentioned Star Trek, and indeed, Star Trek is of course falls under the category of science fiction, but we all know that science fiction ultimately turns into science fact, right?
Oh yeah, that's
so
right.
Should we indeed imagine maybe not even the far distant future, but to be one of the Borg and its AI counterparts, the collective? Or how do you see us walking that path to the future?
Well, I think that the path of the future, I mean, we saw all the challenges that we have ahead, and the challenges are, different. Johan already mentioned it. For me, Japan, it's amazing. I showed to you the roster of this production line, right? I mean, thinking that you have an avatar as your boss, that you have a collaborative robot as your partner. I think, really that the future is truly a collaboration between humans and all these, smart technologies. We think that, humans are losing their place in the production lines, in the shop floor, but also Johan was mentioning, we're still so many humans there. I mean, we really see how the demands for future products are, growing. We want mass customized products. We want highly personalized products. Robots are good at standard tasks. So the only way to respond to the future and the future market demand, if the trend continues, is to even involve more humans in the production line to gain the flexibility and agility that we need to respond to this mass customization and personalization demand. And because the demand, the volumes for this demand of mass customized and personalized products will continue to grow, then we're going to see more and more these new natures, new ways of working, which are collaboratively and augmented rather than pure automation. I mean, I think that the future of work it's truly augmented and collaboratively rather than automation. And I may even dare to say that in the future, near future, we're going to see less automation and a little bit more of balanced automation, let's call it.
All right. Thank you very much. In fact, I would like to thank all of our three outstanding speakers and your thought-provoking presentations. Maija, thanks very much. David, thank you very much. And Johan, also, thank you very much. I will contact each of you separately once more. And I'd like to, I can't do that, ask the audience to applaud for your presentations. I'd also like to thank the support team in the background, Guido Rakemakers and Ruben Geven from the KNVI Region Utrecht Board, as well as Yvonne de Kruijf, who was there for Moss Events a moment ago, for all the support that she gave in organizing, getting it all possible. For those of you who would like to continue the discussion, be aware the KNVI provides a monthly KNVI Get Connected session. It'll happen actually next week, April 12th. If you look up the website, you'll find the connection and find it also in the chat box. Alternatively, if tech and innovation management have your interest, check out the IEEE-TEMS.org website and look for our conferences. The next one coming up is TEMSCon Europe, which will be held in Dubrovnik, or most likely, of course, will become virtual due to the current situation with COVID still going on. And for members of the from KNVI that operates both national and international, visit the website knvi.nl. So I would like again thank all of you for your insights, for sharing your views, your perspectives. I'd like to thank all of the audience for all of your questions. We have not been able to address them all. We're time bound as usual. But again, I would like to thank all of the participants for the questions and all of you speakers for your time and your diligent presentations. Thanks very much. I will close the session for now and hope to see all of you.
Oh, maybe we still, if everyone puts the sound on, we can clap for everyone now. We can do the real. Everyone, unmute, please. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.